Hi, everyone. Cris marchioNNE, Executive Director at Person-Centered Care Services, disability justice activist, and welcome to the PCCS emPower Hour. Today, we have the co-chairs of the Education Committee from the Staten Island Developmental Disabilities Council, MaryBeth Bergren and Christina Silva-Soto. Welcome, MaryBeth. Welcome, Christina. We're looking forward to hearing from the both of you today, a year in review of the Education Committee, some of the highlights, some of the challenges you guys faced, and we're looking forward to hearing what lies ahead for the future. So take it away. I'm going to give it right over to both of you.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Cris. Hi, everyone. I'm MaryBeth Bergren. I'm a co-chair of the Staten Island Disability Council's Education Committee, along with Christina Silva-Soto. I am a family educator with Include NYC and a mom of 2 children with autism here on Staten Island. I'm really excited to be here with you today. And Christina?
Hi, I'm Christina Silva-Soto. I am mom to a son with autism and other developmental disabilities. I am also a director at Tri-County Care, and I'm happy to be here.
So we're just going to give you a highlight of this last school year and just some tips as we head into summer. So our return to school for 2021, I know we were all scared to return to the new school year. We weren't sure what to expect as we headed on in. I know as a mom of 2 school-age children, I wasn't sure what to expect, but we were super excited to kick off the fall 2021 school year with our first SIDDC Education Committee meeting in October. We waited through September to see what we should expect for the school year. And we started our meetings in October. We had, for Include NYC, our first episode of our Disability Inc. podcast with a member of our SIDDC council, which was Donna Long, and she is a dynamic Staten Island community leader for us, and she talked about her journey, her personal journey through autism. It was an incredible conversation, and I know Christina is going to share in the chat a link to our Disability Inc. podcast, so if you didn't get to listen to it then, you can certainly go back and listen to it now and hear all about her journey and a lot of our fantastic episodes on our Disability Inc. podcast. But we started our conversation around what is school going to look like? What are recovery services going to look like? What is transportation going to look like? How are we getting our kids back into the classroom? What is the education system going to look like, and how are we going to navigate it through this school year? And as we treaded lightly through the school year, we really got our kids back on track, back into the classroom, back to learning. And we did get those recovery services started by the end of December, and we got our committee also back on track. So our meetings really started to gear up in November, and I'm going to let Christina talk a little bit about our first special guest speaker in November.
Thank you, MaryBeth. Yeah, I know for me as a parent, I was very trepidatious to enter the school year. We weren't getting a lot of information. Children didn't have their bus schedules to the very last minute, which was very nerve-wracking. And and a lot of children didn't have even their bus assignments well into the school year. So it's unfortunate that it had to start off that way. So we are just really hoping that moving forward that won't be the issue for this year, but it definitely was very scary for a lot of us. So we started off in November with Lucia Boylan, and she's our Community Education Council liaison for District 31, and she was discussing bridging the gap between the school and the community and the importance of collaboration between D75 and D31. And I just want to point out, and this is something that I just came to know a couple of years ago, is that even though there are 2 separate districts, there's still one educational committee. It's not community, excuse me. It's not 2 separate entities. And it would for me, being a person with a child in District 31, I would see, families that have children in both districts and wondering where they belong and could they sit in on other meetings, and it's just really, it's one community. So what I loved about the discussion with Lucia is that she really made our family members feel that it was one thing. It wasn't two separate paths. And she did explain that in other boroughs there are different districts, but that on Staten Island it's a very unique situation. We have a D75, and we only have one other school district. Um, Something that was on the minds of a lot of parents was the lack of collaboration in these co-located schools, and that can be very disheartening for parents, especially when you're seeing other in the District 31 sector, them having stepping up ceremonies or having these graduations, and there you are in your specialized program in the D75 part of it, and they're not having any of these activities. So why keep things separate? Why have two different set of rules? So I know that, and I know MaryBeth can probably speak a little bit more to this. She's had experience with that, but with these co-located sites, having things merge and having these activities together, children are children, and they shouldn't be separated. They shouldn't be segregated. The point is to be inclusive. I know we had a situation in one of these schools. MaryBeth, I don't know if you want to speak to that about the graduation and the stepping up.
Yeah, where they were just not going to have one in the co-located site. And so we wrote to district leadership and said, let's change co-location to collaboration, right? Let's bridge the gap between the District 75 program and the District 31, right? And where these programs are living inside these community school buildings. Because if you were to ask a child where they went to school, they would name the community school building, right? I go to PS6, I go to PS58, I go to PS48. They don't say I go to PS 373 at, or right. So they belong within that community school, and we want that to resonate. And we've seen some really great change within the community, and that's because parents are starting to change that mindset across the board in both District 31 and District 75.
And having these conversations, having these meaningful conversations that, bridge these gaps. Keep using that phrase, but it is true. If we as adults are, speaking in terms of at this location, at that location, this is what the children are hearing, or these are what the students or the individuals are hearing, and that's not what we want. We want it to be just one unit, one location, one school, one community. So that was a great presenter that we had. In December, we had the ASD Programs Borough Manager for Staten Island, Marjorie Gaudry, and she came in guns blazing, discussing the ASD specialized programs, the NEST, Horizon, ACES, and TAP. And this, to me, even though my child is in Horizon, every time I hear her speak, I hear something new. And for a lot of the families that we had in that meeting, I think they were surprised at how easy the process actually was, at what they were able to actually do, because a big issue that we heard was that a parent had a child in a let's say a 12 to 1-to-1 class or an ICT class, and they would inquire about moving into Horizon or to Nest, and they felt that they couldn't do that. They felt that if they went into a program in kindergarten, that they were locked in, and that's what it was. And that is never the case in the DOE. You are never stuck in any type of program. So it was very eye-opening for a lot of these parents. And I got to tell you that Marjorie got a lot of parents reaching out to her after our meeting, inquiring about how to get the process starting. And it's as easy as an application. That's all it is. That gets the ball rolling. All you have to do is fill out that application on the DOE site, or we gave them the direct email to the links. And I got to tell you, I must have gotten 4 or 5 letters afterwards from families who were going into Horizon, who were moving from Horizon to Nest, who were moving schools to get into a different program because that's where it would be the best fit for them. And they were so happy to have had that explanation, really taking that deep dive into these programs. And again, a big thing that we get is parents feel when they sign on that that is it. Or it's dictated to them what the program should be for their child, not necessarily what the family might be looking for, that least restrictive environment. I don't know, MaryBeth, if you want to jump in on here.
Yeah, and also that it's an open application. So just because the school year starts does not mean that the application is closed, right? So it's not like applying for a charter school or apply the T5 process. It's not. It's an open enrollment, so you can decide mid-year. I might want that program, or this doesn't seem like the right fit for my child right now. I feel like this specialized program might be a better fit. Let me apply for this program. You can move at any time.
And you can grow within the program. So there are
Absolutely.
individuals who might start, they might be a little bit insecure to jump right into Nest, let's say, and they don't want to put the pressure on that child or the individual, and they'll start them out in Horizon, and you can jump into another program. You can go into Nest, and you can have the team come out and observe. You can have the psychologist in the school who, there's a psychologist in each school who basically runs the program, or there's a liaison in the school for the ASD programs, and they can come in and observe and make a recommendation to you. And I have seen this personally in my own child's school. He's in Horizon. He has last year a student that moved into Nest, where the teacher and the liaison came in and reviewed, and this year 2 students in his class moved up to Nest. So again, you're not ever stuck in any type of placement. You have to always think about what's best for the individual, what's best for the child. So again, I really thought out of all of the conversations we had this past year, that to me that was a really great one.
In January, we had Catherine Stanzoni. She's the special education trainer from the Regional Partnership Center come. She spoke about the New York State Alternative Assessment for families, what the impact on the student's education pathway is, who is in an alternate assessment, what the meaning of alternate assessment is, and all of what the parameters around alternate assessment are and standardized assessment. This is near and dear to my heart. I do a lot of work around NYSA and the NYSA pathway. This seemed to be really informative for parents, because I don't think that parents get a lot of information around what that very small check off box on the IEP is and the impact that that box has. Parents should be revisiting the NYSA options on the IEP every year. And that doesn't seem to be happening. Parents aren't having conversations around whether alternate assessment is something that makes sense for their child every year. We also are seeing that students are being put on alternate assessment very early on in age. Alternate assessment is something that really should be a conversation that's happening 3rd grade and beyond, and we're seeing alternate assessment happening as early as T5. And that's a problem. We're way above the 1% that the state deems appropriate. And that's also a problem. And I think a lot of it comes from the misunderstanding of what constitutes appropriate placement in alternate assessment. And it's not a placement recommendation, it's a state testing standard. And so this was a really informative conversation around what New York State alternate assessment is, what conversations should be happening every year up until high school, because that determination has to be made prior to high school, because it will affect graduation. It will affect the type of diploma that a student receives. if they are on a NYSA, they will receive a credential and not a high school diploma. If they don't receive a high school diploma, it will affect college options. It will affect military options. So a lot of impact on that box that gets checked on that IEP. So this was a really eye-opening conversation for a lot of parents. We hear that at Include. We have a free helpline that parents can call, and we have parents that call in a panic when they say, I didn't know my child wasn't getting a high school diploma. And
But
that's
Mary Beth,
really scary.
also the fact that sometimes that box is checked off for the family and they don't even know it.
Correct.
And that's something I learned this year, that again, parents have this on the IEP or they have this box checked off. It was never discussed with them. They had no idea, and someone else made that decision for them. Or they have it checked off. Maybe they decided early on and they didn't realize that they could change that and they could uncheck it at any point. So these are two things that were very eye-opening to me. And again, it's just the knowledge is not there for the families. The information is not given out in clear black and white, which it should be. And we can't have other people making these decisions for our children or for our individuals. And if you make a choice, you should be able to make another choice to change it if it's not the right choice, or if it, children, individuals, they grow. We don't want to stay stagnant. So there is going to be change with that growth. And so families have to be empowered to know that so that they can make those appropriate changes.
And I say that all the time. How can you tell me if my child will graduate high school in kindergarten? Like,
Right.
how are
Right.
we making these decisions? And how do we know if we never try? Like, and what's the harm in trying? And there's just so many questions there. And I know I could talk about NYSA for hours. I do talk about NYSA for hours. My husband probably wants to kill me because I talk about it all the time. It's just something that's near and dear to my heart. So if you want to talk about NYSA, give me a call. I will talk about it all the time. But we will move on to the next, because we had so many great guests this year and we want to tell you all about them before we run out of time.
Oh, Lindsay.
Yes, Lindsay, go ahead.
So Lindsay Highland, she is a teacher for ACEs, the program at IS 34. She's amazing. She was there to discuss, again, a program that not a lot of families know about. I, again, learned something that day, where this program, the ACEs program, really focuses on the day-to-day, daily living skills. It's not just paper and pencil and just in the books. It's actually attaining the skills that will allow our children, our individuals, to thrive out in the real world. I think this is a great program, and I don't know that a lot of people know about it. I certainly did not. And it starts at what grade, MaryBeth?
Elementary school.
Elementary school.
It's at 58. PS 58 has it in the elementary school, and then IS 34, and I believe IS 75, and then high school. I want to say Newdorp and possibly Tottenville.
Would you say that this is a program that children can start out again in a maybe a horizon and then move into this program, or you feel it's more coming from an ICT?
The classification is intellectual disability for the ACEs program.
Okay.
So you can see that there's a class profile on the DOE website for the ACEs program. So you can read the class profile just like they have for Horizon and Nest. So it's kind of the same how they have it set up for the specialized classes. They'll have a profile for ACEs as well.
And with someone coming from D75, could they go into this without an issue?
Absolutely.
Great.
And it is a District 31 program. So it is a community school district program.
What I like about this also is that they have their own Instagram, the Shake Shack.
Yes.
And they
Yes,
are
she does.
constantly posting what they're doing, um, having a lot of fun. I wish school was that much fun for me, but I like to see what they're creating and what they're working on, and all of the activities that they're doing. Again, it's not just pen to paper. It's not just the books. There's so much more involved. We always talk about, and this is something we discussed. Back in the day, what they should be teaching us is how to balance a checkbook and home ec. Where are the home ec classes? Or,
Hmm.
all of that's kind of gone out the window with technology, right? We're not even, writing anymore. We're not, what is handwriting? My son will see me handwriting. Is like, what is that? What are you doing? What are you scribbling, mom? Meanwhile, he's typing, and it's that's what they do. And I remember speaking to Lindsay at one point after she presented, and I was saying that my son, he has a problem with his hands, so he's been given permission to type, and so she says, well, what about for math and things like that? I said, yeah, well, I didn't even think about that. So can you imagine, as a parent, I'm sitting here just going with the recommendation from the school that we don't want him to spend so much time processing what he's trying to write and trying to figure out how to write. So we like to have him type. But she's right. If he's going to, balance a checkbook, or if he's just doing his math problems, you can't do that typing. And so that's when we got into this huge conversation about hands-on, and how it's so important for these life skills to be integrated into education, into the school system. I don't see much of that in my son's program. I don't know, Mary Beth, have you seen that in any of the programs?
I love the ADL skills that are part of this ACES program. I really
Mhm.
think I wish that some of the parts of all of these specialized programs were embedded in all of school programs.
Right. I think that makes the most sense. Maybe that's something we should be advocating for
I
next.
to get back
Um,
to the basics. I remember starting, I'm
yeah,
probably dating myself, but I remember starting IS 75 as a middle schooler when it was mostly a brand new school at the time, and they had like state of the art graphic design and sewing and home
yeah,
economics
home
and
ec.
cooking and woodworking and shop class, and you could metals, right? And you used to make birdhouses and bracelets, and I loved it. It was great. And we also had typing and math and English and social studies and science, and you had science fairs and social studies fairs and math fairs and English fairs, and I was always making something for some class. But it was everything. You still had the learning. It was,
Right.
you were still reading books and taking tests and doing everything that the kids do at school now. You just also had all of those other creative outlets.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's something that they should incorporate into these other programs. Um,
Put that on the list.
yeah,
Put that on our advocacy list for next year.
yeah, long list. So moving on to
Yes.
March, we
In
had Julia Lupino. She's amazing. She's the regional coordinator for Parent to Parent of New York State. And she was there to discuss the resources and supports for families. A lot of families are not aware of what their rights are, let's say when they walk into an IEP meeting, that there are support IEP parents or support IEP individuals who will assist you in your meeting. And what that means is they don't go in and advocate, or they don't try to change your trajectory. However, they're there to help slow things down for you so that you have that sense of calm. Because sometimes those meetings are very stressful, they're moving very quick, they're talking very fast, and it's coming at you boom, boom, boom. And you need someone there to kind of slow it down. If they see that you're getting a little frazzled, or they see you need that support, they will jump in and say, hey, let's back it up. Let's, let's go at this again. And that's what they call an IEP support parent. So that is something you would request from the school, because you're supposed to be notified still 10 days before the meeting, right? And given a copy of the IEP 10 days before the meeting, right, Mary Beth? That hasn't changed. I know a lot of families are probably going, really, 10 days before? I get it the night before, or I don't even get it. They'll send it to me afterwards. No, 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 no. You're supposed to get that document well ahead of time. You can request that support parent, and they will have to locate one for you to be there with you. And you can also bring, a lot of our families have OPWDD. You can bring your care manager as a support to that meeting as well. And if there's anyone else you wanted to bring, you just have to request it in writing. Correct me if I'm wrong, MaryBeth. And they will allow you to have that extra support in that meeting. I can't tell you how many times I hear parents, say, oh, it's so scary, and you sit there and I'm the only one, and there's like 6 of them there. I mean, faculty, staff from the school. So it is important for us when we go in as parents to feel comfortable and to feel that we can engage in this conversation in a way that we don't leave there thinking we've just been run over and we've just been given what's going to happen, versus being a part of that conversation. It is our child or our loved one's education, and we have a voice in that. So other things that parent-to-parent office are support groups. They have these virtual support groups that have been going on through COVID, which is amazing. All of New York State. They also have something called a support parent or support member. And what that is let's say I have my son who's got an intellectual disability and has autism and an AKT3 deletion. They will try to match me up with a parent, if not in New York State, somewhere, if not in New York State, somewhere in the US with the same type of diagnosis as my son. So someone that could speak to me, talk through the situation, talk through some of the pains that are involved with having a child with those disabilities. And I think a lot of families just don't know that. A lot of parents don't know that this is something that they offer. So an example is that Julia gives all the time is that she has a loved one with a specific heart issue. And so she connected with someone across the United States, and they talk and they become, partners in these discussions. And so I really feel that the amount of support that comes from parent to parent is limitless sometimes, and a lot of families just don't know about it. And they do a lot of workshops. They do workshops on your caregivers, on taking care of yourself. They do the health notebook, which is great because they give you this great binder, and it's organized so neatly for you. You just throw in your documents. They also have an educational binder workshop. Same thing, from soup to nuts. It has these little tabs and these little areas where they go in and they show you how to organize your documents, and it can all be done virtual. They are now meeting in person somewhat. In some regions, they do meet in person. I know Staten Island, they are doing in-person meetings, the support groups and these workshops. They also do workshops on OPWDD. Help me out, MaryBeth, anything I'm missing? Or even Chris, if Chris knows. I know she knows a lot about them also. But they have a plethora of workshops. So you could just go right on their website and check it out. But she was amazing. And then we also had Veronica Stella. I'll let you take this one,
Yes.
MaryBeth.
Awesome. Veronica is our literacy specialist for the Staten Island Regional Partnership Center, and she did a fantastic training on how to incorporate explicit vocabulary for families. She did a whole reading specialty on how to get your child to read, tips for reluctant readers, really just how to introduce vocabulary to your child, even for nonverbal children. Even if they're non-speaking, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're non-understanding, right? So how to really use language and teach your child language through signs, through music. It was a really, really great training session, and there were a lot of fantastic tips that she shared with us to get our children reading, understanding, and using language.
Yeah,
So
she
I
was
love
great.
that one. I think we'll definitely have her again. And we're going to give you some links to help you throughout the summer for those reluctant readers as well. We also had Livy Elias in May. She is our behavior specialist for the Staten Island Regional Partnership Center as well. She did a great training on engaging families in the functional behavior assessment and the behavior intervention plan. Our families really, really love this training as well. We learned a lot. I think I even learned a lot in this training. There seems to be a lot of misconception in the fact that why you may need a functional behavior assessment, that a functional behavior assessment needs to lead to a behavior intervention plan, and that having a behavior intervention plan may deter a move in placement for a child with an IEP. And so we learned those are a lot of myths. There are a lot of myths out there that are attached to behavior, and that behavior is bad, that all behavior is bad, right? And that behavior equals bad. And that is not true, right? We learn that a behavior is just something that's happening that's not expected, right? Where our expectation is X and Y is happening. So let's find out why Y is happening and not X, right? And so in order to do that, we have to collect data. And that's what we're doing when we're doing a functional behavior assessment. And so Libby's fantastic. She has small children. She understands behavior, and she does this training in such a way that really helps parents to understand that it's all about finding that why and understanding, right, that behavior doesn't just happen, that there's 98% of the time there's a reason why that behavior is happening, and we just have to figure out what that is. And there's really a list of ways that we can do that, and there's supports there, and let's meet the child where the child is at and give that support and see what happens from there, right? And then continually readjust and look at that and readjust and support.
And I would say also that misconception too, that someone had mentioned it stains their record. And I thought that was such an interesting way to put it, as though it's going to follow them forever. And that sometimes these events or something triggers and this happens and this kicks off, and it's just at that time. It doesn't dictate what's going to happen for the rest of their school lifetime. So I think it's important to know that, again, as you said, MaryBeth, this is an extra layer of support. Trying to figure out what's wrong, what happened. They do have things in school where they don't have to open up an IEP or do a BIP, the crisis counseling, where I personally had a situation with my son this year, and nothing happened, but I remember them calling me, and I just said, oh my goodness, what do I do? Again, I didn't know enough about a BIP or an FBA. And they said, well, we're going to do a crisis counseling. And the crisis counseling was it's just for 6 weeks, just checking in with the child, seeing what's happening. And at the end, they make an assessment about where you're going to go with this. Are we going with a BIP? Are we going with the FBA? Correct me if I'm wrong, MaryBeth. And in my case, that we didn't need to go any further. We figured out what the trigger was and what happened. But if I had to do it again, I would. And if I had to do a BIP now or an FBA, I would, because I'm not afraid of it. I understand that it's just there to add that extra layer of support for my child. It's to get a team involved, to find out what can we do to make, first of all, to find out what the issue is, what is causing the behavior, what is the root of the behavior, and what can we do to have it subside. What is it that we need to do? What does this child need? And I didn't realize how much was involved and how many people were involved in this, creating this plan. So I'm really glad that we had her there, because again, it does have the stigma around it. When you're speaking to parents or you're speaking to something, oh, do they have a BIP? Do they have a BIP? We see that in the parent support groups all the time. Like they'll put on, do they have a BIP? Is that in place? And it's almost, I don't know. I don't feel that should just dictate what's going on. It just could be a stepping stone to something else, or it's just, so again, it's not a bad word. It's not a bad word. I think people just need to understand what the process is and why they do it and why there are so many layers. It's like peeling back an onion. I believe that's an example that they use. So I think
Yep.
the more that we educate ourselves on these processes, that it'll make us better at helping or to assist our loved ones with their journey through this educational system.
Yeah, I think bringing up a point here about behaviors. It's a form of communication. I mean, all humans engage in behaviors in response to actions, words of others, or things in your environment, right? So I think that's what we have to be open to, is looking at this as it's a way of communicating and getting to responding to the young scholar, the young child, the young student, our children. Is knowing that we value them, that they are being valued because we are open to and accepting to what is going on, and we want to learn more, how we can move through this, and like you said, Christina, move through their journey. So very good top, because you guys had a busy year, and I know you started off with disability justice, where you were talking about inclusion, about the schools not having separate or segregated classrooms, or even segregated schools. I know that Disability Rights New York actually is working on moving towards having more inclusive classrooms, inclusive schools where everybody belongs. I mean, in this world that we're living in now, with diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, we still don't see that, with students with disabilities, or even adults with disabilities. I was on a conference this morning, and Judith Heumann, which I'm not sure if you guys know who she is, but she's considered the mother of the disability rights movement. And she was actually talking about her school journey, that, when she was young and in elementary school, she went to a separated school, a segregated school. But as she got older, her high school experience, she went to Erasmus High School in Brooklyn, and it was an inclusive school. She was there with, learning with non-disabled students. And she believes that the education experience is only more enriched when you have people who are able and disabled learning together. So I do support you guys, what you're talking about, with moving towards that. And I know you got one more topic, so I'll give it back to the both of you.
Yes, thank you.
you.
So this month, next week, we're going to be discussing OPWD waiver services, the process and the transition services for life after high school. I can't express enough how important it is to get into OPWDD while someone is still in school. The earlier, the better. But what happens is, a lot of times parents don't, even though they might have, had it discussed with them at school, the transition coordinators might have brought it up, but they think, I have time. And then what happens now? June is a couple months away. And now what is going to happen with my child in the summer? And I wish I could say that this wasn't something that I hear about every single day. You need to help me. We need to get them these services. And it is a process. Unfortunately, it's not a quick process. It should be, but it is not. And so we are going to discuss what services are going to be available, what the actual process is, how you can get started early enough so that you're not going to run into an issue where you'll have your loved ones sitting home during the summer, not having a place to go. And something else to bring up that is important sometimes there are waiting lists for some of these programs after high school. So it is important to, like I said, to get people enrolled in OPWDD sooner the better. And of course, more importantly for the individual, I mean, whether they want to do job, they want supportive employment, they want to work, or they want to move on to some type of other educational setting or a day hab. There are just so many options for them after high school, but you need to have the services in place, the waiver in place, and ready to move ahead. So we really want to discuss that with the families, because this is something that comes up in our day-to-day. I know MaryBeth, you too. I know Crystal. So this is something we deal with every single day. And it is so important just to get the word out, to get the families in the process, so that when these children do age out, that they have something to do, they have those supports and services in place to help them. So that's what we're going to talk about next week. So we're hoping that you will join us. And now we have these resources that MaryBeth has put together for the summer supports. I don't know if you want to go into it.
Sure. So we just put a couple things together for you, because Christina and I will be taking a break for the summer from the committee, but we will not be taking a break from each other. And we will not be taking a break from brainstorming and coming up with some really great guests for our upcoming school year. We'll be brainstorming what to present for next year and gearing up for the next school year. But we put together a little summer support guide here and some resources for parents. This is just a snippet of what we've put together, so come check it out. We have the New York Public Library's Brain Fuse Help Now. We have some fun and free learning resources for children, some tips on creating schedules for your child during the summer, because we know that, once the summer comes and the schedule goes bye-bye, that sometimes you run into some problems, tips for managing some challenging behaviors, and enjoying books for those reluctant readers. So you can check out these links. We'll share them in the chat as well.
And we're also going to add, first we will also just go back, we're going to add in the chat, if you haven't received a letter yet for your child's summer placement for the extended school year, and you should have gotten those letters by June 3rd. I'm going to put an email in the chat that you can email right away, so that you can find out what is happening, because those letters have gone out, but there are a bunch of students who did not get them, and so this is an issue, and we want to make sure that you don't run into an issue come next month. So I'm going to throw that in the chat, MaryBeth.
Summer at schools.nyc.gov, right?
Yep. Summer RS, I believe. Hold on one second.
Yes, Summer Rising is back for the second year. So any issues with summer, whether it's 12-month program, ASD, specialized programs like Nest or Horizon, extended school year, or Summer Rising, all summer-related questions could be sent to the summer email, which is summerrs@schools.nyc.gov.
And even if your child's IEP recommends OT, PT, or speech therapy for your extended school year, but does not recommend a special class for your ESY, excuse me, you need to contact them, because again, there's a little bit of a disconnect going on, and we just want to make sure that there is no child that is left behind or individual without their services. Remember, there's busing that would have to be put in place, and that's going to be a biggie. So we want to make sure the sooner you know the placement, the sooner they can start getting all of that hashed out. So please just shoot an email over to them if you haven't heard yet. And if you are interested in any assistance with OPWDD, please feel free to reach out. My contact information is here. We're happy to answer questions regardless, no matter where you're from, what you're doing. We are happy to assist in any way.
MaryBeth, Christina, how often does the Education Committee meet, and do you have a standard day and time that you meet?
We meet once a month on the second Thursday of the month. Is that, yes?
It was the third
Thursday
Thursday of the month. However, next year that may switch because our schedules had conflict.
Any other council group. So we're going to be looking at that. This month it is next week, only because we did have a conflict for tomorrow. So,
and you're meeting virtually now,
correct.
right?
Yes. Yes, we are.
Thank you.
And this is just include NYC's free helpline. So you can call or text Mondays through Thursdays from 9 to 3, or you can fill out an online form. We have a dedicated English and Spanish line, as well as our online form on our website. And there is interpretation available in up to 200 plus languages.
And I just did want to say about Include One NYC. This is another resource that a lot of families are not aware of. So if you have a child or a loved one with an IEP, they have, again, a plethora of resources, advocates that can help in your area. So if you're calling, for Staten Island, we have MaryBeth, and we have Simone, right? And they handle Staten Island. So you're getting someone who's in your area who understands the school districts, who understands what should be happening in those school districts. And if they can't assist, they can give you resources to assist you in whatever you're dealing with. And again, this is a great resource that families, always look at me and go, I didn't know that. And I'm like, here, just call them, they'll be able to assist you as best they can.
That's great. Thank you, both of you, Christina, MaryBeth. The information that you shared is so helpful. I'm sure that it's going to benefit a lot of people in our Staten Island community. Thank you for sharing the highlights of the year. And I know you got one last meeting coming up next week. It's just been wonderful. Any last minute words that you wanted to leave our fellow Staten Islanders with?
I think the most important thing to remember is that you are your child's best advocate. So you know your child best. You are your child's number one. You were there first, right? You made it. You're the number one. And you are part of that IEP team. I know I hear it a lot. They say the team said, right? I hear parents say that all the time. You are the team. What do you mean the team said? What did you say? You're part of that team, and just remember that. So your opinion matters. Your opinion matters most. And so just remember that you have a say. You should be part of that conversation. You should question. If you think something's strange, it's probably strange. If you think something doesn't make sense, it probably doesn't make sense, right? And so have those conversations, be part of that team. And if you need support, ask for that support. Go find that support. Ask for a parent member to attend your meeting. Keep asking.
And I was going to say, it takes a village. So no matter what it is, what you're dealing with your child or your loved one, like MaryBeth said, ask for support. There is plenty of support. Our Staten Island Disabilities Council, that is a great start. You just call them up. They will guide you. They will direct you to the right committee. If it's a resource, they have a resource list that they can suggest to assist you in whatever the issue you might be having is. But again, it takes a village, so don't feel like you're on your own. You're not. There are a lot of parents out there just like you, and we have to support each other at the end of the day.
100%. I remember when my daughter first got her diagnosis, I remember going to my mom saying, what do we do? Like, I don't know what to do. And I remember my mom saying, call Donna Long. She didn't know what to do. Call Donna Long. She knew Donna from the hospital. And that's what it is. Like when you say it takes a village, it's so true. You just, you call someone you know, and you ask them, and then they call someone they know and they ask them, right?
Exactly.
And that's what Christina and I do for each other.
All
we call
day.
each other all the time, and we say,
Yep.
do you know who I could call for this? Do you know who I can call for that? Where do I send this parent? Right? And that's what we do. That's what we're here for. So email, pick up the phone, our contact information's there. Share it
You're not
wide,
the only
share it
one.
out.
You're not the only one. And again, you can't do it on your own. So
That's right. Thank you. Thank you both for coming on the show.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. We hope you come back because this is very interesting and important information. And to our viewers, thank you for joining. We look forward to having more conversations in the future, and we'll see you